So our next speaker is from Friends of BRT, and so, yeah, excellent. And you can pick from here for whatever sounds good to you, and you have 5 minutes to present.
My name is Tobey. I'm a member of Friends of Berkeley, of BRT, and just basically a retired citizen with an interest in some civic issues. Jim gave you a very good engineering view of what BRT looks like from the perspective of DC transit. But we all know that transit projects are part engineering and part politics because the jurisdictions that transit runs in get a say in this. So I want to focus on the context in which the decisions for transit get made in general and how we will decide about bus rapid transit. If you look at BRT from just the selfish perspective of the campus, it's an ideal thing and it should be a no-brainer. Why would we not like a bus that runs faster and more dependably on streets that don't get stuck, on routes that don't get stuck in traffic, with a class pass that you can use as much as you want? So if we're only looking from that perspective, it would certainly be something that we never even think about twice before approving. That's part of the reason why the campus administration has endorsed BRT. It's part of the reason why the city council in 2001 passed a unanimous resolution to inform the study that Jim was talking about, select bus rapid transit as the option for transit improvements on Telegraph. But we have to talk also in Berkeley about the impacts of projects, not just on the university, but on the city in which we all live. And impacts go in a couple of ways. You may hear from Michael next about some of the impacts that he considers to be negative. I'll just give you an example of something that's positive for the community. In the Berkeley Long Range Development Plan, there's a commitment that if we start a bus rapid transit project in Berkeley by 2011, the campus will reduce by 500 the number of parking spaces it constructs under the Long Range Development Plan. Most Berkeleyans consider more parking on campus to be a negative thing because of the impacts of that many more cars. So you have a project that benefits the campus, but also has impacts on the community that can be both considered to be potentially both negative, potentially both positive. So people who are against transit projects should look at something like the reduction in parking spaces on campus as a potential positive. We just talked about the process we're going to go through over the next year to reach a decision on this. Jim talked about being halfway through the environmental review process. The EIR means that we look at the impacts of a project on the whole community in as many ways as we can. And look at the potential mitigations for those impacts and see if the residual impacts that we can't get rid of are too severe to limit the project. So we're halfway through. We have about halfway to go until we have a final environmental impact report, which will define the precise project that we need to go through. If you look at the AC Transit Handbook, handout here on page 24, it's an example that there are still choices to be made. The draft environmental impact report was a general description of the project. There are many options about where the routes will go, what streets will be dedicated or not dedicated, where the stations will be located, how far they are apart, a number of other things about configuration. So the city is being asked now to choose among those alternatives, not to approve the project, but simply to say what's the exact project that we will now study so that in the future, which looks like next year, we'll be able to say yes or no about whether this is something the city wants to approve or not. We have a project that's good for the campus, that has impacts on the community that can be looked at as potentially both positive and potentially both negative. And we have to decide. Unfortunately, the people who are opposing the project, who put big no on BRT signs down Telegraph Avenue, want to cut off the debate at this point and say we should have the verdict before the evidence, and that the city council should now reject an actual study of an actual project in favor of just saying no, going with the existing buses with a couple of potentially minor enhancements. So that's the way that we approach this now. As Friends of BRT, we would love to say that we want your endorsement for the AC Transit project to build a specific bus rapid transit system in Berkeley. We're not quite at that point yet. We don't know precisely what the system is until we can study closely what precisely that system is. Look at all its negative impacts, all of the potential mitigations, and all of the effects we can imagine about the community. We can't reach a rational decision. So we're taking this a step at a time. I hope we can come back to the ASCC in 6 or 8 months and ask for your endorsement for a specific project going forward. But what we'd ask at this point is that you support a vigorous study of the actual BRT project in the way that AC Transit has laid it out, so that we can have sufficient information to make a good decision. We're confident that the fears about what might happen will turn into the facts about what will happen, and on that basis we'll be able to go forward. But mixture of engineering and politics, in Berkeley that takes a long time, usually about 3 times longer than you could possibly imagine. We're about halfway through that. Thank you. Any questions?